All right, so over on the PBC side of things, on the Fox side of things, over in New York, Omar Figueroa Jr. just went in and completely laid waste to Robert Guerrero, man. Just a pretty crazy fight altogether, and I mean a crazy performance from Figueroa. Being especially that he was coming off that long layoff. I mean, shit, it seems like it's been like almost 2 years since he had that fight with Antonio DeMarco. Um, I think it was only a year and a half though, so maybe a little bit more. Um, but here against Guerrero, I mean, he definitely looked like he was feeling the ring rust in that first round. Guerrero was just kind of picking him off at will from the outside. Was landing, a fairly high percentage of the punches that he was throwing from the outside. It seemed like he wasn't having quite as much success on the inside. As it got a little bit gritty, Figueroa had a slight bit of success, but he still looked kind of slow to pull the trigger and everything. But in that second round, Figueroa just came alive. I mean, Guerrero came at him, looking to try and bully him as he's kind of been known to do since his welterweight debut, pretty much. And Figueroa just, I mean, he hit him with a uppercut from hell that just snapped Guerrero's head back and just hurt him. Dropped him on his knees, and I mean, from there it seemed like Guerrero pretty much just couldn't recover. He dropped him 2 more times in the second round, and looked like Guerrero might be on his way out. I mean, he was pretty much saved by the bell in that last knockdown. He was very wobbly. The judge, the referee just kind of wiped off his gloves just by happenstance, simply because the bell had rung in the midst of his 10 count, like probably around at 3 or 4 in the 10 count. And, Guerrero was up by then, so of course, he was basically saved by the bell, even though he was still a little bit wobbly, still a little bit hurt from the shots that he had been taking from Figueroa. In the third round, though, Guerrero came out like a bat out of hell, landed a huge left hand on Figueroa, but the crazy thing was he wound up going right back to being on the inside as opposed to just trying to stick and move on the outside where he could have potentially been able to pot shot Figueroa and made it much harder on Figueroa to be able to close that distance. He basically gave the distance away to Figueroa, put his chin on a platter for Figueroa to hit him, and Figueroa, I mean, just basically let loose at full bore. Figueroa has had a lot of hand problems recently. That's a big part of the reason why he took this long layoff after the DeMarco fight. He had a lot of really just kind of bad or middling, at the very least, like middling performances after he initially won his title at lightweight. He had been just laying waste to everything in his path, knocking everything out. But then, after he won his title, he started breaking his hands, broke his hands against Nihiro Arakawa, broke his hands against Jerry Belmontes, broke his hands against Ricky Burns, broke his hands against DeMarco, both hands. I mean, the thing is, he's breaking both hands. Couldn't really get very much leverage on either hand, so it was like he was just going off of stamina. A lot of those fights was just able to kind of outwork guys in those fights. Here against Guerrero, though, I mean, he didn't look like he had any hand problems whatsoever. Hopefully he didn't break anything again or fracture anything. He hit Guerrero with Guerrero looked like he got hit by a truck. And the thing is, Guerrero has been known to have really a good chin, generally speaking. I mean, outside of getting, kind of almost knocked out by Aaron Martinez and otherwise like almost knocked out by Keith Thurman back when he got dropped against Thurman. I mean, he's shown himself to have a pretty solid chin and have fairly good punch resistance by and large. But I mean, it might just be the figure Guerrero has gotten old, and the thing is when you taking that many licks on the chin, eventually it's gonna crack. It's gonna crack really badly. But I mean, all things considered and all things being the same, Figueroa, I really didn't expect it from him. I mean, even if Guerrero's chin might even have a little bit more give to it than it used to, I still wouldn't have expected Figueroa to just go in there and just basically body Guerrero the way that he did. I mean, he went in there and pulled a World Star Hip Hop job on his ass. He put him on his highlight reel for sure. In a fashion that nobody else had really done. Danny Garcia didn't do it. Keith Thurman didn't do it. Floyd Mayweather didn't do it. I mean, that was years ago, but still. Having that TKO 3 on your record like that, I mean, that's some fairly impressive stuff at the very least, especially for your first fight back after such a long layoff for Figueroa. Got right back into the swing of things. Figueroa even said after the fight himself that he feels like he's probably going to be trying to drop down to 140 in the near future, which is really where he probably should be. I get it. At 135, that might have been just a little bit too much for him. But at the same time, I mean, even at 135, he really wasn't the leanest guy around. I mean, he's a fat kid basically. You know, he's a guy that, you know, he likes his sweets and everything. He likes to, you know, he likes to enjoy his food, you know. And thing is, you have to have a balance of that, man. You know, and the thing is, you don't want to let that take away from, you know, being able to have that money in the bank and, you know, in your investments and stuff for your future, in order for you to put food on the table for your kids and your family and, you know, stuff like that. You know what I mean? It's like you don't want to really trade like short-term pleasures for long-term success and longevity and stuff. You know, but, you know, unfortunately, you know, especially if a lot of these fighters that, you know, they wind up going through a lot of these training camps and such, and that can be stressful and everything, and that could be part of the coping mechanism and stuff. And it's understandable, but still, I mean, hey, you gotta put it off. You gotta keep your eyes on the prize, and just keep on grinding, man. Just keep on grinding. There's a time and a place for the celebratory feasts and stuff, but otherwise, you got to be grinding and working hella hard and just trying to do what you do, man. And you know, if Figueroa is able to come out with that type of mentality and with that type of viciousness that he showed here against Guerrero, I mean, I wouldn't put it past him to beat a whole hell of a lot of guys at 140, especially considering the fact that 140 in the near future may be kind of become a wide open division again. You know, should Terence Crawford defeat Julius Ndongo, or even if Julius Ndongo beats Terence Crawford, I'd imagine the winner is most likely moving up, and shit, the loser is probably moving up too. I mean, Terence Crawford isn't a small welterweight. I mean, that's been known for a good little while now. You know, Ndongo probably could see the money bags and the big money opportunities, potentially moving up to 147 should he manage to pull off another, you know, big win, big upset over Terence Crawford. And so that might be a way for Omar Figueroa to kind of get his foot in the door and be able to do some things. Who knows? Maybe he might even be able to get a shot at a vacant title versus the winner of like Adrian Broner versus Mikey Garcia coming up. You know, I've talked recently in the past like about the fact that Garcia-Broner winner most likely will wind up being at welterweight sometime in the near future. But at the same time, I mean, especially if Garcia wins, considering he's a bit more disciplined than Broner. You know, Broner, anybody's guess what he's going to weigh in on any given night. At the very least, Garcia, I'd imagine if he was to defeat Broner, he'll probably look to stay at 140 for at least a fight or two, try and get a title belt, and then work his way up into the 147-pound rank, as opposed to just rushing ahead up into it, unless there was some sort of major, massive payday. But I don't necessarily see those major, massive paydays necessarily being there for Garcia to really kind of tempt him upwards, the way that it was like for Robert Guerrero, for instance, where he was tempted upwards by being able to fight Andre Berto and Floyd Mayweather, and the possibility of Manny Pacquiao if he had beaten Mayweather way back when. But those same opportunities don't necessarily exist for Garcia, unless Mayweather decides to fight Garcia after he fights McGregor or something, you know, something crazy. But you know, all things considered, the opportunities may very well present themselves for Omar Figueroa. You know, he may be coming back right into the right division at the right time, in the right place, for himself to make a name, make some good money, and do some things, you know, in the 140-pound division going forward. But you know, that all remains to be seen. You know, he's a guy that's shown promise in the past and hasn't really lived up to it. A guy that's been a bit of a career underachiever, all things considered. But who knows? Maybe he'll finally be able to start living up to his potential. I mean, he's definitely had his time off. He talked about he wanted to be just a lazy bum for a little while. You know, enjoy his family and stuff. You know, he has a young family and everything. So you know, props to him for that. You know, you definitely want to be in your kids' lives and all that good stuff. You know, but you know, at the same time, you know, there's a time and place for all that stuff, and hopefully going forward, we'll get to see more of him in the ring, which will ostensibly be able to help his personal life, his family life, and all that stuff in the aftermath of that. So, getting to the undercard real quick, I wanted to touch on the undercard fights. Marcus Brown pulled off a big knockout victory over Sean Monahan. Second round knockout. He dropped Monahan hard in the first round. Monahan basically had no defense, man. He just got caught cold. You know, his main opportunity was going to be able to crowd Brown, to kind of bully Brown, like almost in like a Ruslan Provodnikov's fashion. But Monahan has never really shown those kind of skills to be able to close the distance and just kind of bully it out the way that like someone like a Provodnikov was able to. in his prime and such. But Brown just, he picked him off at a distance and did kind of like what Robert Guerrero was looking to do to Figueroa, incidentally, in the early goings. And Brown was much more successful and landed heavy, clean early, caught Monahan cold, finished him off quick, and that's all there was to it. Brown is another guy that's very highly rated in the light heavyweight ranks. May at some point in the near future be able to get a title shot. I mean, even Monahan was being talked about for a title shot against the likes of Adonis Stevenson recently. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Brown get in the mix. Brown has a very heavy punch. He's kind of a killer be killed fighter though. He's a bit chinny in his own right. It's either he's going to get knocked out or he's going to knock you out. Anything is possible when he gets in the ring. So I think he's an exciting fighter to watch, and I'm definitely interested to see exactly who he comes across next. Maybe even him versus Sullivan Barrera, who was on the other card that I mentioned in one of my other videos. That'd be a pretty solid fight as well. Him against Vosdek would be good. Or if he gets the title shot, or even like a Little Alvarez. All solid fights for Marcus Brown going forward. And then Artur Spelke taking on Adam Kovnatsky, I think is how you pronounce it, Kovnatsky. And Kovnatsky, for his big name debut, his kind of big stage debut, showed out on Artur Spelke. Of course, Spelke has had the long layoff following getting brutally knocked out by Deontay Wilder a year and a half ago. But Kovnatsky did a damn fine job. Went in there, didn't look like a very impressive looking fighter. Just from the jump of it. He's kind of a fat guy. He looks like somebody that might be like working at like your local deli or something, like or like he might be like delivering pizzas or some shit. You know what I mean? Like just like a regular Joe, like an average Joe looking type dude. But hey, 16-0 with 13 knockouts, and that 13th knockout came at the expense of Artur Spelke, proving that he has some damn good power. He was hurting Spelke as early as that first round, setting up his shots fairly nicely. Has a little bit of that Andy Ruiz about him, incidentally. He's a fat guy who's actually fairly quick with his hands on his feet, and he put together punches pretty well and got Spelke out of there. How can we really judge him off the win? Spelke was coming off the layoff, did get brutally knocked out in his last fight against Wilder, but at the same time, Spelke generally is a top, fairly high-level operator in the heavyweight division, at the very least, really a top 15er, and Kovnatsky just basically, at the very least, took his place, if not jumped up in pretty much to the possibly top 10, maybe lower half of the top 10, if not maybe 11th or 12th or something. I don't know. I don't have a rating system in front of me necessarily. I'd have to really list it out to get a feel for it. But Kovnatsky did a damn good job. Definitely somebody to look out for in the near future, I think. Could very well wind up being a future Deontay Wilder opponent. Maybe him versus the winner of the upcoming Gerald Washington versus Jarrell Miller fight. Him versus the winner of that fight might be a pretty intriguing fight to be had somewhere in the near future. There's definitely some good fights out there to be had in the heavyweight division. The heavyweight division has definitely opened up recently. Some good fights out there. Maybe Dillian White, get him in there. Some good fights to be had for him, I think. But really impressive victory for him. For kind of a newcomer on the scene. So to speak, taking a fairly big step up in competition from like more journeyman level guys to a guy that's more of like a fringe contender in Spelke, and shown through in fine fashion. So that's all I got to say about the PBC card, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.